Hello everyone! Today we will start with discipline Basics of Computer Graphics. The discipline Basics of Computer Graphics enters the basic elective cycle of disciplines in the preparation of Bachelors of Engineering and Technology in the specialty Architecture. The discipline Basics of Computer Graphics aims at understanding the relationship between tasks and methods of architectural design and the possibilities provided by computer technologies, solving architectural design problems using computer graphics programs, and knowing the capabilities of various graphic editors in order to choose the optimal solution for a practical task. This discipline will guide seminar teacher Domane Inessa Anatolievna. We will be studying two large sections of computer graphics. The first section is the graphics program CorelDRAW, the software that belongs to the drawing, creation and designing field, which is also definitely linked with the architect's professional life. And the second section associated with the program for drafts, AutoCAD. In the future, this software will be primary tool for your professional life. Today's aims: understanding vector graphics and bitmaps, CorelDRAW workspace tour, exploring the toolbox, and first practical task in CorelDRAW. All images that computer graphics programs work with are divided into two classes: bitmaps and vector. Bitmaps, also known as raster images, are composed of small squares called pixels. Each pixel is mapped to a location in an image and has numerical color values. The closest analog of such a phenomenon of the virtual world as a pixel image in the real world is mosaic. A pixel image consists of elements of the same size evenly spaced on a plane and shapes pixels, like a mosaic of colored glass pieces, which is called smalt. If certain conditions are met, the main ones are the small size of the smalt fragments and a sufficiently large distance of the viewer from the image surface. The individual pieces of smalt that make up the mosaic image are not visible. The viewer's eye perceives the image as a whole. Also, this idea is at the heart of pointillism, a painting technique used by the Impressionists. Most printers reproduced on paper exactly pixel images. Representing a vector image in computer memory is more complex than a pixel image. Also, as a rule, it is much more compact. Simplifying somewhat, we can assume that it is a list of all objects that make up the image, and for each object it is indicated to which class of object it belongs. And the values of all controls parameters are given. Finding an analog for a vector image in real world is not so easy. Vector graphics are made of lines and curves, and they are generated from mathematical descriptions that determine the position, length, and direction in which lines are drawn. Vector graphics are ideal for logos and illustrations because they are resolution independent and can be scaled to any size or printed and displayed at any resolution, without losing detail and quality. In addition, you can produce sharp and crisp outlines with vector graphics. The process of displaying a pixel image on a screen or paper is quite simple. On the screen, a pixel corresponds to a group of 3 phosphor particles glowing in different colors. The printer depicts pixels with inked droplets or spots of toner, dye powder. Devices that directly captured vector image include PFABs-only plotters that are quite rare outside the walls of design bureaus. Almost always, a vector image is converted to a bitmap before output or directly during output. In computer graphics, this process is called rendering. After starting the program, a window for creating and setting up a future document opens on the screen. It immediately suggests setting up a future project. The first line prompts you to enter the name of the document, which will also be saved in the future to the appropriate file with the entered name. The second line prompts you to download or customize the color scheme of the preset destination. You can skip this point, since in any case our document will have an individual settings. Then, in the third line, it is proposed to enter the paper format on which it is supposed to be printed in the future, for example A4 or A0. Everything will depend on the goals and objectives of the project that is supposed to be completed. Also, in the following lines, you can manually adjust the size of the printer page. For example, if it is a business card, you can enter the dimension of the size of the paper, 55 by 85 millimeters. Here, it is proposed to enter units of measurement, for example, if it is convenient for you to work in centimeters, then you can set centimeters, and in the future document all measurements will come from centimeters. In the same section, you will be asked to set the orientation of the document page to vertical or horizontal. Then, you can set the number of pages in the document. If, for example, you plan to create a small brochure or several pages, then you can do this with an on file. It is necessary to pay attention to the next point of setting, the color mode of the document. Again, it depends on the goals of the future project, as we already know. The RGB mode assumes that the project will be displayed only on the screen. In printing, the CMYK mode is used for printing. You can also customize the display mode for the document. By default, they are 300 dpi. They will be quite enough for correct work on the screen, as well as for printing. CorelDRAW Workspace Store. When you launch CorelDRAW, the application window opens containing a drawing window. Also, more than one drawing window can be opened. You can apply commands to the Activate Drawing window only. The CorelDRAW application window appears below. First, it is Toolbox, a docked bar with tools for creating, filling, and modifying objects in the drawing. Second, it is Document tab. A tab displays for each open document to allow you to quickly move between documents. Title bar. It is the area displayed in the title of the currently selected drawing. Menu bar. The area containing pull-down menu options. Toolbar. A detachable bar that contains shortcuts to menu and other commands. Drawing window. The area outside the drawing page bordered by the scroll bars and application controls. Property bar. A detachable bar with commands that relate to the active tool or object. For example, when the text tool is active, the text property bar displays commands that create and edit text. Docker. It is a window containing available commands and settings relevant to a specific tool or task. Rulers. Horizontal and vertical borders that are used to determine the size and position of objects in a drawing. Document palette. A dockable bar that contains color swatches for the current document. Document navigator. The area at the bottom left of the application window that contains controls for moving between pages and adding pages. Drawing page. The rectangular area inside the drawing window. It is the printable area of your work area. Status bar. An area at the bottom of the application window that contains information about object properties such as type, size, color, feel, and resolution. The status bar also shows the current cursor position. Navigator. A button at the lower right corner that opens a smaller display to help you move around a drawing. Color palette. A dockable bar that contains color swatches. Standard toolbar. The standard toolbar, which appears by default, contains buttons and controls that are shortcuts to many of the menu commands. Let us see what standard toolbar include. Start a new drawing, open a drawing, save a drawing, print a drawing, cut selected object to the clipboard, copy selected object to the clipboard, paste the clipboard contents into a drawing, undo an action, restore an action that was undone, display the Get More docker to acquire other creative tools or search for content such as clip art, photos, fonts, and more. Import a drawing, export a drawing, publish to PDF, set a zoom level, display full screen preview, show or hide rulers, show or hide grid, show or hide guidelines. Enable or disable automatic alignment for the pixels, document grid, baseline grid, guidelines, objects, and page. Open the Options dialog box. Start Corel Applications. In addition to the standard toolbar, CorelDRAW has toolbars for specific kinds of tasks. For example, the text toolbar contains commands relevant to using the text tool. If you used a toolbar frequently, you can display it in the workspace at all time. Exploring the toolbox. The toolbox contains tools for drawing and editing images. Some of the tools are visible by default, while others are grouped in flyouts. Flyouts open to display a set of related CorelDRAW tools. A small flyouts arrow in the lower right corner of a toolbox button indicates a flyout. You can access the tools in a flyout by clicking the flyout arrow. After you open a flyout, you can easily scan the contents of other flyouts by hovering over any of the toolbox buttons which have flyout arrows. Flyouts function like toolbars when you drag them away from the toolbox. This lets you view all the related tools while you work. Let us see descriptions of the tools in the CorelDRAW toolbox. Pick tools. The Pick tool lets you select, size, skew, and rotate object. The Freehand Pick tool lets you select objects by using a freehand selection mark. The Free Transform tool lets you transform an object by using the free rotation, free angle reflection, free scale, and free skew tools. Shape Edit tools. The Shape tool lets you edit the shape of objects. Crop tools. The Crop tool lets you remove unwanted areas in objects. The Knife tool lets you slice objects, groups of objects, and bitmaps along any path you specify. The Virtual Segment Delete lets you delete portions of objects that are between intersections. The Eraser tool lets you remove areas of your drawing. The Zoom tool lets you change the magnification level in the drawing window. The Pan tool lets you control which part of the drawing is visible in the drawing window. Curve tools. The Freehand tool lets you draw single line, segment, and curves. The Two-Point Line tool lets you draw a straight two-point line segment. The Bezier tool lets you draw curves one segment at a time. The Pen tool lets you draw curves one segment at a time. The B-Spline tool lets you draw curved lines by setting control points that shape the curve without breaking it into segments. The Polyline tool lets you draw lines and curves in preview mode. The Three-Point Curve tool lets you draw a curve by defining the start, end, and center points. The Smart Drawing tool converts your freehand strokes to basic shapes and smoothed curves. The Artistic Media provides access to preset, brush, sprayer, calligraphic, and pressure tools. Rectangle tools. The Rectangle tool lets you draw rectangles and squares. The Three-Point Rectangle tool lets you draw rectangles at an angle. Ellipse tools. The Ellipse tool lets you draw ellipses and circles. The Three-Point Ellipse tool lets you draw ellipses at an angle. Object tools. The Polygon tool lets you draw symmetrical polygons and stars. The Star tool lets you draw perfect stars. The Complex Star tool lets you draw complex stars that have interesting sides. The Graph Paper tool lets you draw a grid of lines similar to that on graph paper. The Spiral tool lets you draw symmetrical and logarithmic spirals. The Basic Shapes tool lets you choose from a full set of shapes including hexagram, a smiley face, and a right-angled triangle. The text tool lets you type words directly on the screen as artistic or paragraph text. The table tool lets you draw and edit tables. Dimension tools. The parallel dimension tool lets you draw slanted dimension lines. The horizontal or vertical dimension tool lets you draw horizontal or vertical dimension lines. The angular dimension tool lets you draw angular dimension lines. The segment dimension tool lets you display the distance between nodes in single or multiple segments. The 3-point callout tool lets you draw a callout with a 2-segment leader line. Connector tools. The straight line connector tool lets you draw a straight connector line. The right angle connector tool lets you draw a right angle connector line. The rounded right angle connector tool lets you draw a right angle connector line with curved corners. Interactive tools. The drop shadow tool lets you apply a drop shadow to an object. The contour tool lets you apply a contour to an object. The blend tool lets you blend two objects. The distort tool lets you apply a push or pull distortion, a zipper distortion, or a twister distortion to an object. The envelope tool lets you shape an object by dragging the nodes of the envelope. The extrude tool lets you apply the illusion of depth to objects. Transparency tool. The transparency tool lets you apply transparencies to objects. Eyedropper tool. The color eyedropper tool lets you select it and copy a color from an object on the drawing window or the desktop. The attributes eyedropper tool lets you select and copy object properties such as line, thickness, sizes, and effects from an object of the drawing window. Interactive fill tools. The interactive fill tool lets you apply various fills. The mesh fill tool lets you apply a mesh grid to an object. The smart fill tool lets you create objects from enclosed areas and then apply a fill to those objects. Outline tool. The outline tool opens a flyout that gives you quick access to items such as the outline pen dialog box and outline color dialog box. Fill tool. The fill tool opens a flyout that gives you quick access to items such as the fill dialog boxes. Zooming, panning, and scrolling. You can change the view of a drawing by zooming in to get a closer look or by zooming out to see more of the drawing. You can experiment with a variety of zoom options to determine the amount of details you want. You can also zoom in and out in preset increments by using common keyboard shortcuts supported by web browser and other applications. Panning and scrolling are two additional ways to view specific areas of a drawing. When you work at high magnification levels or with large drawings, you may not be able to see the whole drawing. Panning and scrolling let you move the page around in the drawing window to view previously hidden areas. You can zoom in and out while you are panning, and you can pan while you are zooming. In this way, you can avoid having to alternate between the two tools. You can also use the Quick Pan mode to switch from any active tool to the Pan tool. This feature lets you pan without having to change tools. If you use a mouse wheel, the wheel zooms in and zooms out by default. You can also use the mouse wheel to scroll. You can specify default zooming and panning settings. To zoom using keyboard shortcuts, do one of the following. To zoom in, press Ctrl+. To zoom out, press Ctrl-. To pan in the drawing window, in the toolbox, click the Pan tool, drag in the drawing window until the area you want to view appears. To switch to the Quick Pan mode, click any selection drawing or shaping tool and start using it. Hold down the middle mouse button or wheel and drag in the drawing window. To scroll by using a mouse wheel, do one of the following. To scroll vertically, press Alt while you move the wheel. To scroll horizontally, press Ctrl while you move the wheel. Now we'll turn seminar into practical part. First of all, discover by own toolbox, especially take attention how to create geometrical shapes and how to create lines. After creating each object in working area, take attention on parameters of that object in toolbar, which located on the top of the working area. On this practical lesson, your task will be to draw composition with geometrical shapes. Try to learn how to create the shapes and how you can modify them. Also, we expecting from you a nice composition with some idea. On this point, our practical lesson is finished. Next time, we will learn how to create more complex objects and combine them. See you later.